where North, South, East, and West come together, that I was reminded of the essential decency of the American people, where I came to believe that through this decency, we can build a more hopeful America. And that is why, in the shadow of the old state capitol, where Lincoln once called on a house divided to stand together, where common hopes and common dreams still live, I stand before you today to announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
That was a very cold February morning in, I don't know if it was morning, midday, or early afternoon in Springfield at the old state capitol, where former state senator, then U.S. Senator Barack Obama announced that he was going to run for president of the United States. Making the area there even more significant now than we realized back then. But Obama, of course, in 2007, making that announcement, and then weeks and months later, he brought on then Senator Joe Biden to Springfield at the old state capitol to essentially announce he was going to be Biden being vice president. And they went through the 2008 campaign. They won. They won a second term. And now the former vice presidents are presidents of the United States, Joe Biden. So a lot of history there at the old state capitol. Were you there on that historic day in 2007? When Obama made that announcement? 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here with Springfield's Morning News. I'd love to hear from you. I did go. Megan and I, we headed down there. Parking was a mess, but it was fascinating to see the tens of thousands of people. I want to say it was roughly around 10,000 or so people. Just packed. It was freezing. And I actually had a program that evening here on WMAY, Saturday session with Bishop. And I remember going to the event, having some inspiration, and then going back and doing a little bit more research on Obama, and saw that his wife was on the Council on Foreign Relations, and well, that's a globalist group similar to the World Economic Forum and all of these other elite type of organizations that want to craft international policy and question individual countries' sovereignty. But that's another conversation for another day. So even then, back in 2007, I was a little suspicious of, as I am now. Of course, I'm a reporter, so I have a cynical strand all throughout. But regardless, you can't not recognize the historical nature of Obama making the announcement at the old state capitol, where Abraham Lincoln made the House divided speech when he got the Republican nomination so many generations ago here in Springfield. So pretty neat to see the history being recognized. And in particular, yesterday they unveiled a marker to recognize the historic moments that the former state senator and U.S. senator at that time making the announcement that he was going to run for president and a successful bid for president. Were you there that day? It was pretty cold. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
I'm just curious if he ever ended up paying the food bill that he ran out on.
I forget all those details. What was that? It was like there was extra security costs as well, and it was like tens of thousands of dollars or something like that his campaign was supposed to pay for.
Yeah, it was catering food that he never paid for. But speaking of Joe Biden and Obama, the phony pro-worker Democrats, they're all about the unions until the union, their big donors don't want to give up contract negotiations. And then they use the power of a pen to legislate and take what Joe Biden called the constitutional right away from them. I hope the union workers do strike and stick it to these phony Democrats.
All right. Well, that's not this topic, but we'll see what happens. Of course, they may not be able to strike if Congress acts fully, and the House has already done that. The Senate is expected to take that up today. But the history of the old state capitol, significant, and it was honored yesterday during a ceremony unveiling an historic marker. And you had dignitaries from state government there, including Governor J.B. Pritzker, Senate President Don Harmon, who actually served in the state Senate with Obama, and others, and we'll just hear from some of them yesterday at the old state capitol unveiling that historic marker.
Well, thank you very much, Director Callahan. Thank you for the kind introduction and also setting the stage for the morning. I'm thrilled to be here alongside Senate President Don Harmon and Speaker Chris Welch and so many other legislative leaders, as well as our friends at the Obama Foundation, to celebrate the dedication of this historic marker commemorating President Barack Obama's groundbreaking presidential campaign announcements right here at the Old State Capitol State Historic Site. On February 10th, 2007, a bright-eyed junior senator from our great state stood here at the Old State Capitol to begin his journey to the White House by laying out his vision for the United States, a vision where change was possible, progress was near, and hope would prevail above all. 15 years, 4 presidential elections, and 1 pandemic later, that vision remains as powerful as ever. Today, I'm reflecting on what President Obama's historic presidency meant to so many people, what it meant to the single mother of 3 who could now get health insurance, what it meant to undocumented students who at long last achieved some of the protection and support that they desperately needed, and what it meant to Black children and families who finally got to see someone who looked like them in the highest office in the land.
So again, that's Governor J.B. Pritzker in his presentation last 12 hours or so. It was like right at 9 o'clock, actually, so almost a full day ago. But at the Old State Capitol, honoring a pretty historic occasion. And he laid out all the various things there of people who had hope and they wanted change. And it was after, of course, 9/11 and 2 terms of Bush with the war in Iraq. And I know a lot of people, and war in Afghanistan, I know a lot of people voted for Obama because they thought that he would be an anti-war candidate, just the way he was critical of the foreign policy of the Bush administration. That's not what they got, though. There were increased drone attacks from the U.S. on other countries. There was the war in Yemen that went on. Afghanistan went on. Iraq went on as well. So, when it comes to the foreign policy issues, a lot of hope and change just seem to disappear. But again, we can pick all this apart. I don't want to diminish the significance of the historic nature of the Old State Capitol. But I want to hear from you at 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY, or you would have been. Let's go to this phone line here. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Good morning, Bishop. How you doing?
Good. Yourself?
Good. Hey, about 30 days ago, there was this big story about a construction site up near Chicago where they found a noose.
Right. And that was outside of where the presidential library for the former president's going to be. I haven't heard any updates on that.
Has there been any explanation whatsoever, or did they just jump the gun, or was it manufactured?
I don't know. Can't answer that question. I was not part of any of those investigations, but I do remember seeing the news flash that they had to suspend work at the president's library up in Chicago and to investigate a noose being found, but it fizzled. I haven't heard anything about that since. All right, well, if that's what you guys want to sound off on, I'd love to hear from others. Did you go to the event on February 10th, 2007, where Obama made his speech? The Old State Capitol also, it was where Hillary Clinton came to deliver a TV presentation when she was running for president in 2016. And it was interesting. I think it was like an MSNBC reporter was trying to report and was inside the Old State Capitol and was talking about Clinton and somewhat critical of an answer that Clinton gave, but then her feed was cut. And let people just speculate, what happened? Oh, they were at the Old State Capitol in Springfield, and we lost the feed. So I don't know if that was an omen for Clinton's campaign. But regardless, a pretty historic place, the Old State Capitol, and just really remarkable history from being the Old State Capitol, where Abe Lincoln gave the House Divided speech, to then becoming the county building for Sangamon County. They took it apart and put it back together like a Lego playset. It's a pretty neat building and remarkable history there. Now a new marker honoring the former president and his announcements of not just running for president, but also announcing his vice president being Joe Biden, who's now president. So, again, you could just see how all of this stacks together to spell out a pretty historic spot. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
I was there, Greg, but I was actually there for the Blues and Barbecue, I believe it was, festival. I had a friend in there cooking, so I was out there, but it was kind of nice to have the first black president in the background. Nice to see that.
Well, was this Blues and Barbecue was in February?
It was some kind of barbecue. I don't know if it was Blues and Barbecue, but it was some kind of barbecue contest right there.
Well, are you thinking of when Obama brought Joe Biden to announce that Biden was going to be his vice presidential running mate?
It could be. I don't know.
I don't remember.
I wasn't there for that, so that was just kind of a bonus. But.
Well, let me ask you, because I remember going to the initial announcement, and it was February 10th, freezing cold. It was like 12 degrees out. Was it cold, do you remember?
It was extrellly cold.
Okay, well, maybe it was that.
Yeah, huddled in one of the bars there whenever we weren't outside helping cook.
Well, you were there for barbecue, didn't realize the historic nature of it, so there you go. Appreciate the call. 217-629-7970 is the phone number. Historic times here in